So I have Mast Cell Activation Syndrome with Histamine Intolerance, and I'm having a weird trigger right now, a weird flare, I guess you could call it. There isn't really language for this. I was not diagnosed that long ago with anything official, but I have had this most of my life. So I'm still learning to say the right words and understand myself. And so I thought I would share here what's happening to me right now. So I recently had a baby. She was born on leap day. And while I was pregnant, I was almost completely symptom free, like the last few months. Definitely the first half, I still had quite a few symptoms, but the longer I was pregnant, the more my symptoms like went into remission, sort of. And apparently that's a fairly common experience when you have any sort of autoimmune disease and you get pregnant. You can kind of have like a strange uptick in symptoms and become much, much worse, or you can go completely the other way. And some people feel really great when they're pregnant. So I wouldn't say I felt great, but I would say as it relates to mast cell activation syndrome, I was feeling pretty good. Maybe someday I'll talk about my specific symptoms and what for me normal would be like. But to focus on right now, so she was born 7 weeks ago, and pretty quickly after she was born, I started to have symptoms come back. So some of my trigger foods came back. Even some of my kind of like weird things that I don't entirely have figured out, like I will get these bouts of pretty severe brain fog that feels to me like it's just out of nowhere. That was coming and going sometimes, which of course I was postpartum, so there's also that to complicate like what symptoms come from what. Obviously you're not going to feel like yourself in the first few weeks after you have a baby. So anyway, but I have felt my symptoms coming back, and I've said to my husband several times, I definitely need to make a change in my diet. That has been the most effective thing in helping me manage my symptoms. And I feel the best when I'm on a very, what to me feels very strict, whole food, low histamine, low FODMAP diet. Now I say low histamine and low FODMAP because I have to eliminate a lot of foods in those categories, but there are some foods that I shouldn't be able to eat if I was strictly low histamine, low FODMAP that are fine. But for example, apples are low histamine. They're actually zero histamine to my understanding. But apples are a trigger food for me, and it's because they are high in FODMAP sugars. So sometimes I can have an apple, and the less sweet it is, the better. But I had one the other day, and it was very bad news. So anyway, all that to say, I had a great day today. I was feeling great. I did lots of things. We were busy. And then toward the end of the day, I was just like, didn't get enough calories. I was feeling pretty snacky, which happens when I don't have enough protein or enough water or both. And I ended up eating some chocolate chips. And I knew that was a bad idea, but it sounded good, so I ate them anyway. So chocolate can be a trigger food because it is technically a fermented food. So anything that's fermented can trigger mast cell or can be high histamine. And then these particular chocolate chips are milk chocolate chips, and milk and I are not friends. And I didn't have too many. I mean, I had like a handful. But even as I was eating them, I was like, this is not a good idea, and I should not do this. And I laid down in the bed, and I have a nursing baby that I'm co-sleeping with. Don't judge me. And I said to my husband, I should not have done that. That was a bad idea. I'm not going to do that again. Like, the more carbs I eat too, the worse I feel in a general sense. So that's actually coming off a couple of days where I did like almost carnivore diet. I'm not a diet trend follower generally, but high protein and I are that works very well for me. It feels very good to my body. But obviously you don't do that long term. You got to have some vegetables stuff. But anyway, so I was like, that was too many carbs. I shouldn't have had those chocolate chips. I'm not going to do that again. Fall asleep. And he falls asleep immediately. And I wake up like 45 minutes later with TMI, vomit in my mouth. And I jump out of bed. Gratefully, the baby was on his side and not on the side I needed to jump out of bed. And I went running to the bathroom, fully expecting to throw up. And now I have been awake for, I guess I've been awake for about 45 minutes. And my stomach does not hurt at all. Like, I don't feel nauseous. I don't feel like I have the stomach flu, but the acid is like right here in my throat. And when I recline at all, when I lay down at all, so it's sort of like heartburn, indigestion, GERD, I don't know. But I don't have any of that either. Like, I don't have any of the chest pain. I don't feel it down in my torso. It's just literally right here in my throat. And it's not that that is the thing that happens to me every time, which is one of the frustrating things about Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, is that the presentation of your body's overreaction to whatever it thinks is dangerous can be literally different every single time. And learning to recognize it as a mast cell reaction and not what it might otherwise be, like the stomach flu, is complicated and frustrating. But I can't go to sleep. Like, I tried to lay back down and that did not work. I just felt like it was too risky. And I have 2 pillows, so I'm like on an incline. But here I am having a flare, so to speak, and wishing I had treated my body better, planned better during the day. Would have been a good idea too. My stomach is like grumbly, like digesty. I don't know, but it's not uncomfortable. So I thought about taking some Tums to see if that would help, and I might still try that. But Tums are a thing that can also be triggering because they're full of junk and food coloring and nastiness. But the antacid component could get rid of this acid in my throat. I don't know. I haven't had any Tums since I had a baby, so I don't know if that would trigger me worse or not. But for example, I had an allergic reaction to Benadryl because I took the kind that had food coloring in it. And I was already triggered. I was already having a flare. And then to try to manage the flare, I took some Benadryl. And then I had an allergic reaction to that. Like, that is how bizarre it is. And then I can go days or weeks or months at a time and be quote unquote normal. Like, I can just be dealing with small little things that only I know. Like, I usually don't even tell my husband. I don't tell anyone about it unless it's like a bigger, like I need someone to know, you know. And I'm not trying to be a martyr or anything. I just mean it's very everyday life for me. For example, one of the first symptoms I ever developed with mast cell is that getting out of the shower, I would be covered in hives every single shower, no matter the water temperature. It didn't matter what kind of soap I used. I always had hives getting out of the shower every single time, all growing up, literally my entire life. I think it started when I was around 9. I think that's when all my symptoms started, when I was around 9. But that's one of those things, like, because it was an everyday thing, I don't need to tell anyone about it. It's like not a problem. It's just my life, you know? And again, I don't mean that in any kind of martyr way either. I just mean it was normal. So why would you talk about it? So here I am at 1:15 in the morning. Like, well, do I try to go to sleep sitting up? Do I not try? If I don't go to sleep, what's tomorrow going to look like? Meanwhile, my nursing baby is in bed with my husband, and At some point, she's going to need to nurse again, although she's a fantastic sleeper, so that's really good. But do I take the Tums? Do I not take the Tums? I don't know. But maybe I'll find some other people that have mast cell on this app, and maybe we can help each other. I don't know. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Also, if you're a person with mast cell and you have questions, I don't know that I can help you, but I can try. Thanks for listening.